So here is how we're going to start the day. Opening up a pack of Pokemon cards for Vance here today. Oh, and Mommy.
And Papa.
Yeah, and Papa. Ooh.
Ooh, I like.
We got tulips.
Sandy Gast. That's a...
Two, Papa.
Yeah. That seems like a goofy one right there.
Oh, no.
No, you don't like that one?
I love tiny ones.
Yeah.
I got big ones. I
Yeah.
got small
You
ones.
think we got another one of those somewhere?
She wasn't wanting to participate.
Cerulean. That's actually a kind of cool looking one. This Wochian.
No, Nick, this.
Cerulean. Ooh. That's an interesting one. Hey, Tina T.
People name?
Yeah, that was someone who's joined. Oh, that's an interesting
Oh,
one.
that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, that was our big hit, huh?
Thank you.
Does Mommy want the manatee? Mantine?
She does.
Here. Oh,
Just with her stuff.
you gotta put that somewhere else. Yep. All right, buddy. I hope you at least liked some of them. All right, here you go. Take your hold. All right. Go have fun. Oh, get your... There we go. Okay, so... Surging Spark. So far, I've not been thrilled with these packs. I had more fun opening the Perfect Order, and everybody's talking about how much they hate Perfect Order, and I'm kind of surprised by that. Okay, so today, the plan was to... Let me go ahead and turn on this phone. I've got a picture of it saved, but I kind of fell behind. We had a whole day at the library, a couple hours, but I finished off the Gengar from last week. Turned out way better than last time. I think it's cute. It's cuddly. Pillow-y. Yeah, the eyes are a little bit hard, but at the same time, I got the tooth on there. We got the tongue, the mouth. I think it turned out kind of cute. Pretty close to what I had drawn up. So, one of the things that I had decided on was I was going to make, let me see if I can find him real quick. I got this saved on my old phone. Swipe to unlock, and it's just takes forever to do anything on this phone. But that would make sense. It is an old phone. And today, we're making this. Kawbootoe. But I had this idea. So what I did last night was I made this pattern. Real simple. I had this real simple idea on how I was going to put this together. But between the time that we got home from the library and my son doing his 20-minute bathroom break, I had an idea that I would instead basically make a pillowcase out of it. So we've got this old pillow. This is something we got from like some of the craft stores. It's what? Let's see how many inches this is. This is about 10-inch square. And what I can do is I can kind of compact it down a little bit, and I can make this into a pillowcase. Instead of just a plush, it could be something easier, and then you could just take it off and wash it, make it a little bit more fun. Something unique and different. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit more ad-lib than we usually do. Let's see if I can get this to work. The first thing is I'm going to take the black, and I'm going to lay this out. Let's see, where's my face? There's my material direction. There we go. You see how many inches this is. This should be about between 10 and 12 inches. That's usually what I get whenever I get material. So good, that's about 12 inches. And what we can do is we're going to start off by basically figuring out measurements to how we can pack this. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so it gets a little bit smaller. And of course, it's going to round out at the top. So we're probably going to do this at about, let's see, this is a comfortable amount of squishing. So maybe at about, I've got my tool here, so about 7 inches. Yeah, about 7, maybe 8 inches. We'll do an 8-inch base, and I'll round that out. I have to go get my grid paper. I'll be back in a moment. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Okay. Sorry about that. So, again, we're going to turn this into a pillowcase that looks like this. And we're going to do that all real quick and real live right here. First thing I'm going to do is measure about 8 inches. I'm making a plush or a pillowcase today. So we got about 8 inches. So that is going to be pretty much this entire piece. Let's see, where's my center line? That'll make it a little bit easier for me to determine how I'm going to adjust. So 4, we'll put that as the center line. It's not perfect, but that's okay. I want to get a rounded belly. So I think what I'm going to have to do is split this into 2 pieces. Since I want this to be a little bit rounded on the outside, I'm going to basically make a wedge. I'm going to bring that to about here. And my pillowcase is 10 inches. So instead of 10 inches, let's see what I can do for crunching it down. I realize this is going to be really hard to see because the pillow is so big. So let me try and move out just a little bit more. I won't be able to see the screen very well. So if you say anything, let me know. I promise I'm not ignoring you. It's just a case of trying to figure out everything all at once. And again, this is something kind of new. Usually, I would just make a goofy plush. But today, I had this idea to make something new. So we're going to compact this down to about 8 inches. And if I round it out and compact it, so let's see, that makes it about 8.5 inches. I think what we're going to do is stick with 9 inches. That's a good number. So if we go from the bottom, what we're doing here is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create this wedge. By cutting a wedge into the center of my belly, right here, instead of doing 2 separate pieces, the left and right, I will actually create like a rounded belly shape right here. So the wedge I'm going to make is going to start right about between the eyes, and it's going to make this too big for one piece of paper here. So let's say 9 inches. If I started right about here, made it about 9 inches. I can use this line. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out the amount of curve that I really want. See, this is going to be equivalent to what the shape of the belly is. So if I do that right about there, that should give me a nice little soft rounded belly. Now normally what I would do is I would cut both one big piece. So it would be both halves of this belly in one spot. But because it's so big that it won't fit on this paper, I'm going to use this as a center line. And I'm just going to mirror, I'm going to do it on one side, but I'll do it for both. Now for this, since I'm doing about 4 inches, let's see, I will do 1, 2, 3, 4, right about here. And I want this also to be rounded. If you can see right here, I've drawn this up as a rounded bottom. So that means that I don't want this to be just a straight line. I want it to come out right about here. Now the downside is that I won't be able to test this. If this was one piece, I would be able to cut out and then kind of fold it together so I can see where the wedges line up. But it's not going to work that way because of the situation. So now I'm just going to go ahead and, let's see, I think that this will make a nice rounded top. Here's our flat end, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put right here so I know exactly where it goes. I will mirror 2 pieces so that when I cut it, it's going to be one piece that's shaped like this on both sides with the wedge in the middle. What that's going to hopefully do is make it a little bit easier, but let me try and adjust my wedge just a little bit. The downside is that because of the way that the wedge works, sometimes it doesn't do quite as much as what I would prefer on the first try. But part of this is all about the whole creating something the first time, not worrying too much about making it 18 different times until you get it perfect. And it is fun in its own way to do that, but it's also a little bit unpredictable. There's certain times where I've come so far away from what I was intending to make because of that. But there's a few things that I've also learned while doing this. Like, for example, when I put these two together, which, by the way, I'm going to draw a line where the corners are of my flat piece. And there's where I'm going to connect them. I've learned that the piece on the opposite side, when I put that together, I can make that more of the shape that I actually want, and it helps the front take its form. So in this case, let me get all these scraps out of the way. I'm going to trace this. Get my browns out of the way as well. This was the pattern I originally made. You can see I was planning to make it about this big. Probably about the same size as my plush. Hey, Seal. And Pony. I see that you mentioned Tinata. I saw Tinata in there just a minute ago. All right, so my original plan was to make a Kawbootoe this size, which maybe I still will, if you guys like the idea of a plush instead of a pillowcase. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to try something a little bit different, mostly because I got it in my head. Not because I think it's going to be better, but because what happens is every now and then I get this idea in my head and I really want to run with it because I think it'll be fun. And worst case scenario, I will never do this again. But who knows? Okay, so if I do this right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace this side. I've got my fuzz facing downward so that when you pet across the down of the face. I am using a pen, yes, but that's, in this case, it's just because I was already rushing and I really didn't want to try and find my white crayon, my white colored pencil, chalk, whatever. But let's see, I'm going to mark my lines here. I'm doing this so that you can see from both sides. When you make a pattern, it's so easy to forget what you're doing if you haven't done it so many different times. My cat is mesmerized by the movements on my phone. Well, that's fantastic. Hey, it's Catbee. Well, hopefully your schoolwork's going well. I know that what you're working on is a little bit stressful, probably a lot stressful. All right, and now, what I have done is I've made one half of this. I am literally just going to line up my two ends, which is a little bit hard to see on this black, but I've got just enough light where I can see it, even if you can't, which I'm sorry. I know you can see the lines. I just don't know how well you can see like the far line. The way this should work out is the same as if I were to just cut one giant pattern piece. This is something I started doing forever ago because I didn't really want to have these giant pieces, especially since I knew that all I was doing was mirroring. So I've got my entire line drawn across. Okay, now let me cut this out pretty quickly. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do on the back. So I like to do these pillowcases where that's kind of the envelope pillowcase. And if you don't know what that means, I think it's called envelope. Either way, you fold the back ends over and they slightly overlap. And what that does is it allows you to slide the pillow in that overlapping section instead of having it at the end. You know, a typical pillowcase has an end that you slide the entire pillow in. Well, this one you slide in at the back. One good thing about that is it's harder for the pillow to come out if you're playing with it. And another good thing about that is it doesn't have like a super easy opening. It's still easy to get into, but it's not something that kind of breaks away from the feel of the pillow. So even if you were to flip it over, it doesn't make it uncomfortable. And I kind of like the way that they go together. I think it looks a little bit cleaner. I guess it's just because I don't much care for pillowcases that have the opening on the side. But that's what we're aiming for with this plan. And I think what I'm going to do is when I make the back of the shell, I'm going to go ahead and have the center of that overlap, which shouldn't be too hard. I think I've already got a plan on how I'm going to put that together. So now, if I've done this right, let me get my clips. I've got some clips right here somewhere. What I would do if I was doing a paper pattern like this is I would actually literally do it this part. I would fold it. Even if I don't put a crease here, I would put the clips on, giving it about the same amount that I would sew, which is only like 1/4 of an inch. And then I would just kind of clip along the lines. Just enough to hold it in place. And then what I would do with the paper is I would see how it opens up. That's the shape that it would take. So now I could see roughly what I would do for the back. Now, let's see. I think I would like to make this a little bit more pronounced, a little bit more triangular. So I'm going to cut this down just a little bit. I'm going to make not much of a cut, but I'm going to try and do it evenly. But you know what? Here's what I can do instead. Instead of just guessing, I'll put this here. I will take my pencil and kind of change here. It shouldn't take much. I don't want to lose too much more anyways because the size of the pillow I'm using, there's not all that much room because I've already brought it in so much. And then here I will just trace again with the pen so I can see where everything is taken off. Yep, I got to go ahead and unclip these. Didn't get my pen mark completely on here. This is just a real simple little adjustment. Something I usually don't do on my Monday projects, my not Pokemon Mondays. But we're also doing something completely new anyways in the fact that this is a pillowcase instead of just an outright plush. So I think a few new things is not going to hurt. Since I've already unfolded it, I wasn't originally planning to, but since I already have, I'm just going to go ahead and line this side up and do the same tracing. All I'm trying to do, again, is trying to get just a little bit more of a triangular shape by cutting the top part just a little bit more of an angle. And then I will show you what I'm talking about for how I would make the backside. Get my trash out of the way. I got most of my stuff real easy access. So I've got like a trash bag next to me. It's impressive that you can just make patterns out of the blue. Honestly, I appreciate that. It is a lot of fun to do. But here's the thing about it. I spent a lot of time completely failing at plushes. I've tried to make things from drawings, and then I thought I was close, and then it's so far off that I can't even tell what I'm working on. And it's just been a trial and error type of situation. So if you're thinking that it's impressive, I appreciate that. But remember, once you start working on something, you start seeing all these little tricks and all these little things that'll happen. And you learn from your past experience, and it makes it so much easier. It makes it look so much easier. For example, what you're seeing looks a lot easier than what I'm imagining sometimes. All right, so now we have a little bit more of a triangle shape. Let me go ahead and see what that looks like from the top. I think that that's a good size. Our pillow will be squished in, but just a few inches, and then a little bit more squished at the top than I prefer. But that's okay. We'll make it fit, even if it's a little bit stiff. But it'll give us a good start, and we could always just fill this as a plush and then adjust the size if I want to make more pillowcases from it. I hope that makes sense. Basically, I'm not going to go so far with what I'm making that I couldn't turn it into a plush if that's what I wanted to do. All right, so we're going to write front. And this is the part where they connect. Now that that's labeled, I don't have to worry about forgetting what I'm doing with those details. And the next thing is take my grid paper once more. I like to draw a center line. And I can already see that this is a little bit bigger than what I anticipated, but it also looks like it's going to be right on the line of being too small anyway. So better being too big than too small. All right, so let's see if I turn it this way. No, I got the same problem on both directions. So what I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to do a half and half. So I'm going to slide this over. I'm going to repick my center line. I'm just drawing it thick. It doesn't need to be a pretty line. It just has to be enough for me to be able to see it while I'm kind of working on the different pieces. And if I erase the old one, I don't have to worry about confusing it as well. Hey, Shadow. I hope you have a great day, Shadow. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate that. Today we're trying something new. We're making a Kawbootoe pillowcase for the tiny 10-inch square pillows. So I'm going to stop in every so often and show that picture. I never fully charged my phone, so that's kind of silly of me. All right, so here's my center line. We'll pull that up just a little bit more. Now, I'm going to roughly trace this. This lets me know where my actual angle is going to be. This is going to be my backside. Now, I had told you what I was going to do was I was going to build this so that it overlaps. So what that means is once I reach the center, I'm going to have to bring it over just a little bit more. So let's say I bring it in this much. And both sides will be the same, because what's going to happen is I'm technically going to have an overlap of material. So this is the pillow. This is one side of the material. See, there would be this folded in part. And then the other side will just slightly overlap and also have its own fold. And then what you would do is you would reach in between to get that to tuck your pillow into. So for this pattern, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these overlap just a little bit. That way I have enough to fold it in. And then this will give me roughly the shape that I'm aiming for. Now my hope is that I actually have enough brown for what I'm doing. It's not just the back. I have enough for the backs. But I also want to do this outer layer that I fill so it overstuffs it and kind of wraps around the front. And that's going to be something I basically do with a strip of material that I cut and sew between the two pieces. It'll almost be like a bias, a hem, something along those lines, but a lot thicker. And the thickness it'll be on this one will be determined by how much material I actually have. Again, I would have got more material today for sure if I had a thought about the pillowcase beforehand. But this is kind of a spur of the moment. Hey, I want to do this. This sounds like a fun thought. So I didn't come fully prepared to do this exact plan. Another way to know that is the fact that we're doing all the figuring out right here. When usually I like to do that when I am off camera working at night, so that you guys don't have to sit and watch that part. Because this part is interesting to know, but it's a whole long process. I mean, just cutting these two out. If I had already cut these out, we'd probably be basically done sewing. I would have sewn this. I would have sewn the outsides of these. I'm glad I didn't already cut the material, because the idea would have been I would have had to put it on pause and do it another time. But this is all working out. So again, I'm going to do downwards. Get a few of these things out of the way. Looks like I should have enough, because this is not so wide. I should have enough at the top that I can make a long strip that I can then bring around the top. And even if it doesn't go all the way around the top, since I'm not doing a one-for-one likeness of this, what I can do is I can just slide it up higher, and maybe it goes to the top and there's a bigger bottom belly. So there's a lot of leeway because what we're doing is meant to be a little bit more fun than it is to be exact, which again is also part of this event. What I do, my whole thinking is that there were so many people that I talked to in messages that were too afraid to start, or they had no idea what to do to make their own plushes, that I thought it would be really fun to turn something so recognizable as these pocket monsters and then make them into goofy versions that people might see online that their grandmas had made for them because they didn't know. Well, you get to make your own versions. And if you watch me and you see, hey, it's real easy to have fun with it, that seems like a huge bonus to me. Now, one thing I need to do is I'm going to go ahead and mark right here. And the reason I'm doing that is that way I can mark that evenly on this side so that I know roughly where my excess is. Remember, I left that extra space so that they overlap and that I have just a little bit for it to fold over. It may be too small of space. I should maybe add another 1/4 of an inch. And in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I set it. There's no reason not to. I could always sew it a little bit more if I need to. But what happens is if you cut it too close where the envelope edges are so close that they're almost exact, when you fill it with the pillow, it pushes it open. So it kind of ruins the effect of what I'm aiming for. If I overlap enough so that when it fills the pillow, they slide out but don't reveal the pillow inside, it will definitely look better. So let's go ahead and make this a full 1.25 inches on both sides, which again, I marked where my original line was planned. So now I've got 1.25 inches here. And then I'll just connect these two lines with my ruler. Real simple process. And then when I do the next one, I will make sure I leave enough space to do the same thing. So basically, I'm just going to slide that over. Let's see, what do we got? 1.25 inches. I'm going to use that same line. Well, pretty close to that same line. And 1.25 inches. So from here to about here. And then again, I'm just going ahead and mark this. Say 1.25 inches. I don't know if you can even see the bottom line. There we go. So now, and that also gives me the mark already so that I know what I'm looking for. Whoops. Didn't line that one up right. There we go. That should give me 1.25 inches on both sides. I've got some extra lines here, so that's just a little bit of a mess, but shouldn't be a problem. I'll cut down the center here. This is the back. Now, part of the reason for choosing this particular Pokemon to make as a pillowcase is because of the simplicity of its design. I could probably do this with several different ones where I just turn it into a case instead of a full-on plush. But suddenly seeing how easy this was and how close I can make this with a simple pattern, I think this will be a little bit more fun as a test run. And then maybe I'll make some more. Make a whole line of pillowcases, and then people can just get whatever they want and change it out depending on what company's coming over. You could just use throw pillows for the whole house. And then when family comes over, you're like, oh, I don't like their type of Pokemon. I'm going to go ahead and throw these out because it'll be funny. And I can still make them just a little bit goofy. Not having to worry about taking it too seriously helps out a lot. And what I'm going to show you real quick is what I'm referring to with the overlap. So what I will do is fold in just a little bit, and then I'll just run a seam so that the end, so that the actual side we'll just have this flat piece. We'll have a nice soft edge. But what's going to happen is I will fold them over like so. So that when you stuff it, this is where you put the pillow in. And I think that that'll make it look really nice. That'll be the back side, and the front side will have the belly to it. Now, the next thing is figuring out the outline. What I want to do is basically cut a strip. We're going to say maybe this wide. See how big that makes it. If I do it the maximum width, we'll say right about here, because that's how much space I have before I change my cut. If I do it to about here, that'll give me this much space to fill. And I could just put fluff inside that, so that's not a problem at all. That's a good amount of size, at the very least for this first try. So then, what I would have to do, I have to decide, do I want to cut it out now or just measure it? What I would do a lot of times is I would take a soft tape measure, like a standardized kind of sewing tape measure, and I would just run it around. Well, since I have the material here, I can just go ahead and do that. So this is about the first of it. I want it to start right about here, and then I can run it across. Live restrictions for audience. Your live contains themes that may... That is not true. For some reason, I say some things. I understand the decision, but the restriction is too strict. Their notice is unclear. The decision is fair. My live does not contain. So, apparently there are times when... Oh, I see what's happening. I'm saying the trademarked word too many times. I forgot about that. So essentially, it thinks that I'm trying to sell something, and I am not. I'm actually just trying to make something brand new, but I keep referencing what I am getting my inspiration from, and it thinks that I am trying to sell it. So I'm going to stop using that word. And this should be enough space. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add, what I did was I ran this material all around the edge just to see how long I needed. So it looks like I need to about here, which means that I need to give myself a little bit of leeway. So I'm going to go to about here. It doesn't need much, and too much is better than not enough. And worst case scenario, like I said, I can slide it up more. But you can see how much space that covers. This is how long it's got to be in order to go around the outside of it. 2 restrictions. Let me make sure that there's nothing else. I've got like 8 minutes before it turns off, but we'll see what happens here. Now, I'm going to move this out of the way. I don't know where I threw my top. Oh, here it is. Okay. So, I know how long I want it. I know how much space I have because this is the minimum space, the maximum space that I have because it's the shortest section. So I'm going to fold this over, make sure that it looks about even, make sure I like the way it looks, and I'm just going to put a little mark here. Now, in order to get this even across the whole thing, what I would sometimes use is a rolling cutter, which basically looks like a pizza cutter. But I'm not going to the trouble of going to get that right now. Instead, I'm going to adjust the camera here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to line up my edge, and this mark looks like 3 1/4. And I'm just going to make a series of 3 1/4 marks. As long as they are, I can make them as long as I want, as long as I can fit my ruler from one point to the other. So from here to here is fine. Here to here is fine. I just have to make sure that the series of marks that I make are all in the same range. Let me double check when I looked at here. Yep. Yeah, 3 1/4 is fine. And I'm just going to make a series of 3 1/4 marks. Now, if you're wondering how I know if I'm perfect on it, I don't. I could be doing roughly the same, what I'm doing here, in small amounts. But if I get enough of them really close, it usually balances out. And there's lots of ways you can do a straight cut and be assured of it. But we're not talking about all the tools and techniques and mats and everything else that you might have. Like this mat that I've got, I could literally line this up on one side and then just cut a straight line from the threes. But not everybody has something like that. And if you're starting from home and you're just using like a t-shirt or a blanket to start making your plushes with, doing what I'm doing is a perfectly satisfactory way to get started and see how to make just something as simple as a strip of material. And here's my line. So I'm going to line up there. And remember, I've got like an inch, maybe 2 inches extra from what I thought I would need. And it's just better to have the extra. You could always cut off stuff, but if you have stuff, if you run out of space and you make it too small, it's not always easy to sew on more material. A lot of times it is. If you were making a strip and you just need to add another inch, you could literally sew on another inch. But if you're making different shapes, it becomes a little bit more difficult the more complex it is. So now I'm just going to take all my marks and I'm going to draw a straight line right across here and do that all the way across. I do want to make sure it's flat. You know, if it's got this bend on it, you're going to get some weird shapes. But just make sure it's a little bit flat. It should be good enough for you to be able to follow. And of course, you don't want it to be bent on one side. And even this edge, this is the edge where they cut it when I bought it. That might not be perfectly straight. Again, because what we've done is made so many little marks that the line on this side is going to be pretty close to that line wherever it is. Not worrying too much about being perfect makes it a little bit easier to have a little bit more fun. So just kind of keep those details in mind. And even if my line is not perfect, I'm sewing like this. I'm basically making a tube of material. It's also not going to be relevant in the end. You're not going to be able to see how perfect it is. It's going to take its shape when you fill it. And I know this is going to be kind of small because here's what's going to happen. When I sew this together, I'm going to lose about that much material. So this is all I'm going to be working with. If I had more, I would probably add another 2 inches to make this thicker for what I'm wanting. But this is going to be great. This is going to work for exactly what we're trying to do right now without any major issues. And now we've got our line to cut. Not a super exciting part. Honestly, cutting out patterns is one of my least favorite parts of working on these. I go through the whole process so many different times. I make my little mice. I make rats and bats, and I have no easier way to do this other than what I am doing right now. And I suppose there's a possibility I can get like some kind of laser cutter or use a Cricut of some sort. But even that, I suspect, would not work because the material that I'm cutting here, this minky material, it's not as flat and smooth as cotton. You can see that there's a little bit of a fuzz to it. You can see how thick it is. Even in the shading here, where the light's not very good, you can see how thick it is. And I imagine that no matter what I do, I'm just going to be left with cutting it out all at once. Maybe one day I can sell my patterns to some big corporation and they can print it all out at once with some giant die-cast cutting machine, and who cares, right? Okay. Now, I think we've got enough details put together. The last of this is going to be the legs and the eyes, and I will probably do the eyes today. I will at least do one of the eyes. But let's go ahead and readjust here. I'm trying to get my camera so it's showing what I'm doing while not being right in my face. And I've got like 3 points of articulation on this thing. It's a nice phone holder, camera holder, but it also like sticks out all over the place. Okay, now I got to get my black thread in. Get my scissors, my pen out of the way. Here's my bobbin. Look at this. This is my sideboard. It's almost too much of a mess to tell what's going on, but I happen to be right here, so I'm able to tell roughly what I'm doing. I just got to dig through like different threads and scrap materials and all this different stuff sometimes. And then I'm just going to throw this bobbin right in that pile too. It's not chaos. It's a very specific type of clutter. All right. It is not a difficult process to rethread my machine. I did learn, see, what I'm doing now is I'm actually pulling it down because I learned that the mechanism right here does not automatically catch hold if you don't pull it tight. And I don't know if that's just my machine. I don't know if that's just my model of machine. I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to be done. I just know that when I first started sewing, I had that problem so much that I eventually found that method of kind of fixing it. And I might be able to help you figure out something with your sewing machine. I'm not professionally trained, but if you send me a message because you're having some problems with your sewing machine, I will do my very best to help out at any time. All right, I'm going to take my clips off. So again, this is the wedge. It's a rounded V. And what happens is if you have a flat piece like this, it's going to do its best to stay flat. So even though it might puff out a little bit from the stuffing inside, it's still going to try and stay flat. With this rounded piece, when I sew these together, this is going to be the shape it tries to take. And you can see there's the flat, and here's how it's rounded out. This is the shape it's going to try and take when I stuff this in. So that gives you a little bit more, a few more ways that you can shape your material whenever you are trying to make your own plushes. It doesn't work for everything. Sometimes you have to have multiple pieces to give it a rounded shape, but it is an option if you just want like a belly. Let's see, what else do I use it for? I think I've used it to shape a butt sometimes. So there's a lot of little things you can do with it. It really just depends on what you're aiming for. Sometimes it depends on how big what you're aiming for is. Now, when you get to the top, this is the edge of it. If you just sew off the top, you're going to have a corner right here. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thread, I'm going to sew it, slowly bring it closer to the edge and rounding it out as much as I can while bringing it over that corner. Still try to do a back stitch because I want it to hold in place. And I'll show you that in just a moment. What I'm going to do now, I like to keep these pieces in. And the reason I do that is because when the thread is there, once you backstitch just a little bit into whatever you're starting, you can actually use this as a handle to kind of pull it through. Give it just a little bit of pressure so that fur like this does not get all stuck up in your feed dogs and your boot, your needle, nothing else. It makes it a lot easier. And I learned to do that when I'm sewing small pieces like this. All of this, the head, the ears, this is all stitched in the machine. And I would not be able to do that without a handle pulling one piece through. I can do the ears, but the head, the face, there's no way. These keep getting stuck. They get sucked underneath the corners. So I use the ear as the handle to pull the next piece through. And in this case, I probably don't need it. I'm mostly doing it as a reference so that you can see what we're talking about. And here's another thing I don't always need. This is such a small section that I just want to be folded over that I want it to be a little bit even. So instead of just running it through, I'm going to go ahead and pin it in place. I like to have the bigger space on top, but so we can see what we're doing, I'm going to go ahead and use the small folded over end as my top layer when I stitch it. I am doing the pins in this direction because I'm planning to pull them out as I go. And it's just a little bit easier. Once I get to the next pin, I can pull it out and just kind of keep running with it. And it makes it a little bit easier than it would if I were to have them pinned in this way, especially with how little material there is. If I try to pin this way, I'm only going to get one end in before it comes out somewhere else. Or I've got to really force it there, and that could bend this material, and it really causes a whole host of problems. So just doing this to make a real thin edge, and you can see right here, that's the line I use for the edge of my actual design. So this is all that's going to overlap, so that I can do that pillow that flap that I was talking about to insert the pillow. So now you can see I've got several pins in. Once I get my needle started right here, I can go ahead and pull this first pin out. Be careful. Since you've got all your needles going this way, if you pull this one out, you'll be pulling directly into your other point. So don't hurt yourself that way. It's not something that you might think about, but at the same time, once you get used to it, it's an easy thing to forget. Again, I can already tell since the back stitch that that's going to be hard to feed through. I'm so close to this edge, and instead of sewing that way, I chose to start here, that I'm really going to need to use this as a handle. And all I do is just a light amount of pressure. If I pull too hard, it'll make the stitches kind of uneven, which causes its own little problems depending on circumstances. And then I keep that edge in line with my boot and makes it a little bit easier. Yeah, you're talking about the edges and getting it caught up. Yeah, that's crazy annoying, Eweezy. All right, so just a small line. Again, I get to this point. I have to be careful as I'm moving because as you can see, that needle is going to stick up. So you do want to be careful about that. It's almost inevitable that eventually as you're sewing, you're going to stab yourself. But everything you can do, all the things you can keep in mind to keep that from happening, the better. Ah, see, just did it right there. Just going to keep sewing, straight line. I'm not moving too fast because both material is thick and I'm really close to my edge, trying to keep a little edge on here. Back stitch, and then I'm going to use this one as my next handle. And I'm going to go through the exact same process right here. Just a little bit of a fold over. Now, the way that I'm doing this, since they're both the same, I don't have to worry about which one's top and which one's bottom, which sounds hilarious to me because my mind goes in all kinds of different directions. But the thing is that the easier you can make it on yourself, the less chance you have of underthinking because you've already made all the choices in advance. So since I don't have to worry about which one goes on top, I can just kind of throw this together without having to worry too much at all. I am one of those guys that tends to do too many different things at once. So every time I work on anything, I try to say, okay, what will keep me from having to remember anything? If I have to remember where this goes, that's a problem. And I don't want to have to deal with it. And with these projects, these are all one-offs. This is the first time I've made this. I've made pillowcases before, but I've never made a pillowcase like this. So I have no idea what will or won't work. So making it as easy as I can, so I'm not having to think about the next step, just saves me that trouble too. If I've made 100 of these, there's so many things that I don't have to worry about. I can just go on autopilot and run through it. So another reason I do that is because I have made several of these plushes where I have forgotten to leave openings for me to right side them out. So what I started doing was just adding an extra pin where I'm going to leave that open. So when I reach that point, ow, son of a gun, I don't have to think about it. And I know that if you're just learning how to sew, there's a lot of these things that sound like, okay, that sounds like good advice, but you might not remember. But at the same time, if you remember one or two things every now and then, and I've made something a little less painful for you, I'm going to call that a full-on win. Because, of course, as you do a project, as you do anything, you just automatically get better at it. Because unless you want to make mistakes, you see what you do. And you kind of learn how to make it easier on yourself. All right, so if you look right here, if I were to have sewn just up to the edge, there would be this point where it goes out and then comes right back in. It would basically create a fold like this. But because I brought it so close to the edge, you can see how small it is. What wound up happening is we get this nice rounded end, and it just kind of fades into the rest of it. So what should happen is I should have just a little bit of a belly on the bottom, so I can put the eyes up here, and it'll kind of round it out when I put that pillow inside. Okay, so the next part is one of the more difficult parts I've got planned. This is the face. These two parts of the back. This strip is going to go around the outside. Now, what you can do is you can literally just sew this together like this, like right along the edge, so that the outside is ready. You could also sew this way so that you right side it out. There's a few problems with both of those. I'm trying to decide right now if I sew right here and leave a little bit extra. What I can then do is put that little bit of extra between my layers. Nope, I can't do that. And here's why. If I leave that little bit of extra, when I right side it out, that extra is going to be on the outside or the inside, the part that you can't see. So it won't be sticking out like this. So essentially, I have the option of sewing together right now like this and then using this as the extra. Or what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fold it in half. I don't think there's going to be much of a difference in the amount of thickness if I did either of those other previous plans. But I'm going to fold it in half so that the correct side is out. So it'll look like this. I will then find where I want it to start. And I am going to put that on the inside. So this is the face. This is the back. So thank you so much. I'm hoping that this shape holds and it has just enough space for what I'm building here. So if I look at my design, I've got this pretty close to the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try first to see what will happen if I get it that close to the bottom. I have to get the corner here. So I'm basically just going to slide just a little bit, kind of create an angle so that I have this. I have to make sure that corner stays out. I'm going to go ahead and do it this way because it'll be easier to see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and pin this in place. And then from here on out, I'm going to make sure that this stays lined up. Let me back up just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to make sure that my outside strip stays lined up on the two edges. Okay? But I'm going to, as quickly as I can, get to that edge. And yes, that means that this little thing will create a wedge. It won't be as thick as the rest of it. But I think that that'll look good. I think it'll tuck in. So as quickly as I can without it being too obvious. So right about there, line up my edges. I have to make sure there's just a little bit of that material still out. And now I'm just going to start pinning this in place. Oops, I got to make sure I pin the edge of the black. See, I've got one pin, that pin here all the way through to here. I think I've got, nope, I don't have it quite all the way through. So I'm going to go ahead and pin all the way through. And there we go. Now I'm just going to follow the same edge, making sure that I do the same thing, keeping as little as possible of the brown so that I can make it as thick as I can when I right side it out. So this strip will be as thick as I can possibly make it. But I am having to follow that shape. Now, the good news is I don't have to worry about it being even. Once again, we are not aiming for 1-to-1. We are aiming for a cute, goofy version of the same thing. I am doing a lot more pins than I might do because there is a large amount of curve here. And because I'm also trying to make sure that I keep that in place as well. So it's kind of like doubling the amount of pins to reduce the amount of work. Because once I get this in place, I still have to put the back sides together. But I'll also know for sure how much of this strip will fit. Maybe when I'm done, I'll have to actually readjust it and bring it around some more. What I could potentially do is use those clips. And in fact, you know what? Now that I've realized that, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Clip, keep tracing. Well, essentially tracing. Clip. This will be a little bit faster and a little bit easier to undo when I get to the point where I want to attach the back of the shell. I am going to have to pin it when I sew it. But since I'm not even sure about what length it is, this is just going to be so much easier than having to pin, unpin, pin, unpin. Because now what will happen is if I have to shift it, I can just kind of loosen the clips a little bit and run those along. There are these really nice clips that you can get, little clear plastic clips, and they're really small, actually. I've seen very small to pretty large. And those would probably be better if you are really planning on doing something like this a lot. They do help with a lot of different types of projects too. For me, I just happen to have these clips. I use them for leather. I've used them for metal, wood projects, all kinds of different things. I'm one of those guys that tries to be as versatile with my tools as I can. And if I can avoid spending money on something, I'm going to do it. It seems more reasonable, especially in the times that we're in. All right, it looks like now I have to, right about here, get the same edge. So what I'm going to want to do is bring this out. Let's see, I think right about here will be a good point. So it looks like I'm pretty much where I want it to be. And I think I can just pin it. It looks like, let me get that close to this edge, this corner. All the way in, all the way through. That should hold it in place pretty well. Now, I think that's great. I want this to actually overlap the front a little bit. So that's why I chose to pin it this direction so I can see. So what'll happen is I'll have this little edge on the outside. Even if it doesn't push forward to the front, like what I've got drawn here, it will still be thick on the outside. And yes, in case you are wondering, it's going to look like a distinguished lip compared to the back shell. That is on purpose. If I wanted to really go through some extra steps, I could probably make the back side with that little bit of extra and then fold it in so that it all becomes one piece that wraps around. But we're not worried about something quite like that. I could have also made one flat piece that goes around, cut a series of wedges so that it bends in a little bit, and then made one strip on the front so that it does wrap around as well. Again, the aim here is not to make an exact one-to-one. I want a goofy version. And what I've drawn here, it looks like there's like this donut ring on the outside. And I really think that that's going to make it look goofy and fun and cute. So let's see. I think that we've got all the way around roughly what we need. I can actually go ahead and cut this off. I think what wound up happening is I did a measurement all the way around, but you can see how big of a difference it is from what I anticipated. See, that's several inches. What is that? That is almost 7 inches of strip longer than I anticipated. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and line this up using the same clips. Oops, this should overlap my center line. Let's see, I think the other one is the one that I've got the drawing on. Yep, see, there's my line. Oh, whoa, what happened with the light? There we go. So there's my center line. Whoa, what is doing that? Yeah, so I guess this light was just causing all kinds of reflection and my camera just could not keep up. All right, so I've got this line here. This was my original line where the shell stopped. If I were making a plush, that would be roughly right here is where I would sew them together so that I have that shape. So this is going to be close to what I want my edge to be. I'm going to put that really close. See my center line from where I put the belly? And I put that pretty close. Let's see how that works. Yeah, that works pretty nice. So from here, I can start pinning it in place. Now, the good thing is because I'm doing that envelope, the way you do that is you literally just put the two ends together and overlap them. So basically, it'll be this. And then you just sew it. You've already fixed the edge by having that end. So when you sew this across, you're just going to sew through all the different pieces and your envelope will be what's left. So for here, what I'm going to do is, let's see, what would be the easiest way? I'm going to go ahead and start from the bottom, line that up. It lines up pretty well. There may be a little bit of an adjustment at the top, But now I can start pinning, and I'm going to use the black side as the side that I keep up. So right here, and then I'm going to put another pin. I'll do the other pin on this side once I get that half on. So now I have to do several different types of pins. I may actually leave both pins in this one because it's so close to the edge. Remember, I had that running off right there. Oops, running off right there. So if I leave this pin in place, it'll actually hold it and it'll be a little bit safer. But I can add more pins. I'm using my feel. I can feel roughly where those two line up. And worst case scenario, if I wind up sewing and I sew on the black side, but I miss on the brown, all I'll do is flip it over afterwards and re-sew the parts that I missed. So that should be a pretty easy process. Some of my pins kind of suck. I should probably just get rid of them, but they work for other things. So there we go. So that goes through the front, the black part, parts of the edge, and the face. You can even see it, or the back part of it right here. And that's basically what I have to do for the rest of this. I've got it pretty well lined up. All I'm going to do is take all these pins out and run that through all these pieces all at once. Making sure it lines up with the black. I'm not concerned if it lines up with the brown, but it definitely needs to line up with the black. And now another thing is I'm going to be sewing through 1, 2, 3, 4 layers as I do this. So I definitely plan to take my pins out as I go. I've already had a situation where I slammed into one of my pins, and that wasn't even using multiple layers. A lot of times I will actually just leave the pins in because the spacing I use when I sew usually brings it on both sides. And they're so thin that even the needle tends to just kind of go right over them anyways. Oops, I want to bring that down to the black. Once again, having so many pins is making this a little bit easier to kind of go through the process. It'll make it a little bit faster when I kind of get to that point. Okay, lining up everything as I go. Do my best to line up everything as I go. And I'm getting to the end where the first back shell part runs out. I think I just grabbed the exact same needle that was not working for me earlier. I think I'm going to add another needle right here just because, just to be on the safe side, make sure that... That was great. Fantastic. Just stab yourself in the finger. That's a great idea. Never let anybody tell you you can't have your dreams come true. Okay, now you can see that I've got this end here. It's off the center. When I put the next one on, I'm going to overlap so that I have just a little bit here. I did not mark my original end. It looks like I intended to. Like I can see there's a tiny little mark right here, but I forgot to draw it on the inside of my line. So I think that I see it right here. Basically what happens is I drew the outside where the paper was, and then I drew a line here, but I forgot to draw it on the inside, the part that I was going to be keeping. And I do that a lot. I have a lot of things that I mark with little lines like that, and then I'll put the mark on the outside as I trace it and completely forget the inside. Okay, now let's go ahead and try and see if I can't get this to line up here. I'm going to go ahead and put these first pins on. I think this pin can be used here. So that doesn't adjust that by too much. I don't have to worry about the outer edge, that little tube. Not yet, at least. But now that I've got that in place, I can see if this is going to fit what I think it will. And it looks like it will. It looks like it's pretty darn close to the same as my black piece. Even if it's a little bit bigger or smaller, it's close enough where that should work pretty well. Do I have? Nope, I don't. I do have. Okay, so there's the end of one. Here's the end of the other. They are both held in place by pins. Good. So I just got to line up my brown and black just for another pin or two. Trying to do this on camera, but I'm realizing I keep slipping off as I'm working. All right, excellent. Now, there's a part of me that wonders if I should add the eyes beforehand. I think what I'm going to do is, if I like this, I will applique the eyes in the future. Basically, my question is this. My original plan for the plush was I was going to cut little red circles and just put it on. And then I was going to hand stitch it on. But I realized at some point in time that if I were to cut out the circles, I could put them onto the head and applique them on. An applique is basically doing a zigzag stitch, like an embroidery stitch, all around the edge of to connect two pieces. I think part of my reason for being hesitant about that is I don't know where the eye is going to go. So if I put it on before I put this whole thing together, I might put the eyes too low, too high. And while that's fine, because we're doing goofy, funny versions.
Pokemon.
Here's this Pokemon.
No.
Oh, I'm working on it. See?
What's name?
This one's Kawbootoe.
Yeah, where's that? Where's Bayo?
The pillow's right here. Hopefully, this pillow will fit inside.
What? No, look.
Yeah. What is? Oh, yes. I am using that pillow. I don't need that. Hey, would you get that off my shoulder, silly?
Picture.
I don't need it. Take it with you. This is the pillowcase I originally made for the pillow. I just kind of took it off real quick. This is a perfect example of what I've been talking about with the envelope case. So the way this works is this side overlaps, and all you do is separate it out and stuff your pillow into both sides. And then when the pillow's in there, it looks really nice and clean. It's got that seam in the back, but it doesn't have the openings on the side. And whenever you're making one, you could just use a single strip of material. See what I've got here? There's no seam on this side or this side. All you do is sew the opposite side, or the top and bottom half together. So it reduces the number of seams that you have as well. So it makes it even smoother as you put it together. So if you're ever making yourself pillowcases, keep that in mind. It's one of those, it's a nice way to make a pillowcase. I really like it. Whenever I make pillowcases for anybody, that's what I use. And I've made a few for like nephews and cousins and my stepmom and a few things like that. My wife has a couple because she found some material that she liked. When she was in the hospital with my son, he was born 2 months premature. So she was in the hospital with him for about 2 months. When I went to visit one time, I brought her, she said her legs were having problems. So I brought her a small pillow with a brand new pillowcase on it. I don't know if he's watching me. But I can hear him fake laughing, canned laughter in the background. For those of you who are not in drama, canned laughter is fake laughter. Dramatic fake laughter. This is almost all pinned up. Now, again, my hope is that I've lined up this brown with the black. So what'll happen is when I follow the stitches for the black, it'll also get this. But if it doesn't, it's not a problem because I can just turn it over, restitch it from that side, bring it in just a little bit, and we'll be good. Right now, I am pinning between several different pieces of material, trying to make sure I get the whole thing. I'm going to undo a pin or two here because I've got to get that overlap of the last piece. So you can see right here, I've got one overlap, and then there's the other one. Plus, I've got 2 layers because I folded over my edge and here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of material. And then what's funny is the part that I sewed to create my edge right here, this little bit, that's technically another layer. So there's points where I'm going to be sewing over 6 layers of material when I get to those. Now, I'm trying to decide. I don't think I need to leave anything open. Oh, I do. So I have to keep this in mind. Because this is going to be stitched, or because I'm going to stuff the edge afterwards, I have to make sure I leave just a small section open. So to remind myself, I'm going to go ahead and slap this puppy on here. When I get to that, I'm going to sew right around here, take it all off, and then I will leave a gap. Then I could use that gap to stuff my edge all the way around the outside. And then I can right side it back, or put the right side back in, and then sew it closed. And in fact, to make it easier, I have found that if you're trying to stuff all this, and it's only like an inch, it's a tube about this big all around, it gets really hard to stuff to the far end. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to put another clip right here, and I'm going to leave 2 openings. When I get here, I will stop so I can stuff to this edge and to here. When I get to here, I can stuff to this edge and to here. I do that with my snakes. I make this really long snakes, and then I'll leave several openings. And I realized that when I was actually making a tentacle for an octopus, I made these 5-foot long tentacles, and they just took forever to stuff. So by having multiple openings, it made it so much easier. Yes, Catby, what's your question? I am doing my best to work as I watch. So I'm going to start right here. I am going to be taking my pins out. I have to make sure I give that pin enough space because it's facing the other direction. Put my stitch in, start pulling my pins out. If by some chance I don't see your question later, Catby, feel free to ask me in a message. But I am trying to... Oh, there you go. Do you ever watch your videos again to see what you did? No. Honestly, I'm probably never going to watch my videos again because I don't need to listen to myself. I don't want to hear myself talk. I don't want to see how stupid I look. But if I ever go through a process where I make something brand new and forgot what I did, there is a chance that I will go back over it. I have heard myself talk a few times. The voice that I use for the most part. All right, so this is how I talk. And I talk this way because I am not a small figure. A lot of times I have resting angry face. And if I talk my normal voice, it's a little bit deeper. It is less personality. I sound like I'm angry, and I'm not really interested in sounding angry. So when I hear video of myself when I'm talking like I'm talking, I feel like I sound like an idiot. And I'm not really a fan of sounding like an idiot. But it's not something I'm going to change. I learned to code switch forever ago, and that's just how things are going to be for the rest of my life. And it's funny when somebody hears me talking in my normal voice and they're like, "Are you mad?" I'm like, "No, just don't have the energy to pretend." All right, I'm going to do a back stitch. That way I don't have to worry about it coming loose. I am then going to slide this over a few inches. And I'm going to back stitch again to start over. So that clip saved me a lot of trouble. Kept me from having to worry about accidentally forgetting what I'm doing. I do see that I've got... Oh, no. Okay, so I have a problem here. I just saw this. See, I've actually got a section. When I put that pin in, it folded under. So when I put that stitch in to start again, it missed that entire half and the entire back. So let me get some stuff out of my way. Get some of this thread out of the way. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to restart at this exact point. But I'm going to make sure. See, there's a lot, because of how much material I was going through with these pins, there's a few sections that actually did that to me. Now I'm going to have to pay more attention to how that looks as I go and make sure that I pull up that bottom layer. It's one of those little problems that you don't realize is a problem. It's not something that happens very often, so it's not the easiest to plan for something like that. But it is an easy fix as long as you catch it soon enough. If I hadn't have caught it soon enough, I might have actually folded that entire shell all the way back, all the way around, because the material would have just kept folding over the whole way. All right, here's my other clip. I'm going to leave that open when I get to it. Whoops, don't want to sew over that. Another back stitch. Let's go ahead and slide this over, making sure that that bottom piece stays in again. Right here. Get that pin out of the way. So why did you, let's see. I also have RB. Oh, yeah. See, I started losing my hair in my 30s. So I shave. I have a goatee. I have a decent jaw, decent cheekbones. But I also have, I have the face of someone who looks angry when you're not paying attention. And I had friends, we used to go to like the city. And like in the middle of the night, one would be like, you know what, I'm hungry. I want to go to the vending machine. And they'd say, would you come with me? And I'm like, yeah. And I realized they were specifically asking me. And I asked them, why me? And they said, because you look mean. You look like somebody nobody wants to mess with. And I don't want to come across somebody while I'm going to the vending machine and have to deal with it. Plus, I am the type of person who stands up for himself. So I'm definitely going to stand up for my friends. All right, let's see. I think I got that there. There we go. All the way across. So that being said, that's just what I've gotten used to. I'm going to go a little bit further. I can't tell for sure if I got both layers of that overlap. Take my pins out before I forget so I don't accidentally stab myself. All right, let's do a real quick scan here. Make sure that I got the shell, the entire strip sewn in. Trying to get my pile of needles all put away. Pins, not needles, pins. A little bit of space here. Put my clips away. In school, I was the person, I love how you take out your pins. I was that person, pins now that you have a special one. Ah. Okay. Yeah, there's so many different things. All right. Looks like, yep, that seems, oh, that might be right here. There's a little section that it may not have caught. But I think that might be the only part. Oh, nope, there's another one right here. So what happened is, as I was sewing, because I really couldn't see them lined up, oh, I almost panicked. I thought I was doing a plush. See, I've got this hole here. So basically, I'm just going to run through and do another stitch. Oh, no, that's not the hole. That's actually supposed to be there. That's funny. Right next to my hole, hold on. Right next to my hole is another hole. So when I sew that closed, I'm going to have to make sure I start just a little bit deeper.
I'm hungry.
You're hungry. Yeah. Like I said, he hasn't eaten much today. Try and avoid the cheese. I wouldn't have given him noodles, but maybe like a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Oh, okay. That's at least a little bit better. All right. So when I sew this end, I don't have to worry because this is right where I stopped. I will actually just sew over that as well. So I don't have to do any extra stitches. I don't think. Let me check this one right here. Yeah, I think I'm good. There's apples and grapes. I don't know if he likes grapes. So. All right. So now I'm going to show you what we've got. I hope that this maintained that triangle shape. It really looks like it may have. Oops. And I think what will happen is it'll collapse down my pillow enough to kind of fix what I want. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to stuff this real quick, which I will put right side back in again, since my openings are all here. I just have to make sure I stuff into my so if I actually just put it in here, I'm just going to be doing that. What I'm going to be doing is trying to get it between right here and just keep pushing it down. No, it's messing with me. It's going to try and pull out. So I got to kind of hold it a little bit weird. And oh, that's also happening. So I've got that little bit of thread here from where I skipped. And that just kind of caught my finger. But I'm going to go ahead and cram as much of this in. It looks like I'm going to have to use my fingers to get it started. Bring this all the way down. It's a little bit harder to see how far I'm going. So I'm just going to go ahead and cram the first little chunks of it down this way so I can see it getting all the way into that corner. Come on, you can do it. Just small amounts is all it takes to start with, because there's a small section, and if you make the wad of the stuffing too big, it won't collapse down into it. And you can see, if I was doing this entire thing like this, all the way around from one opening, that's how hard it would be. And when you get around to the other side, you're like bunching this up little bit by little bit. So if I was trying to get it all the way across, I would put it in here and just bunch and then stuff and then start over again. But by giving myself these two extra or an extra opening, I can basically do half at a time, and it makes it so much easier. Now you can see it like an example of what I mean by easier too. Try and get as much of this in there as I can. I don't want it to be like completely compacted in there. I still want it to be a little bit soft, but it's also so small of a tube that the truth is it's not going to be it's not going to move around a whole lot. If it were thicker, like I said before, if I had more material, and as it turns out, I could have actually just used more material because I had overestimated how much I would need. I could have made it thicker and just used the other side of my strip, which is a bit of a bummer. But again, this is one of those run with it, see what happens kind of situations. But I could have made it really big, and it would have really puffed out. I guess I don't need all that much in at a time. I'm probably already to where I started. Nope. Just a fold, that's all. As you can see, it's not difficult, but it's not super easy. I keep thinking that I need to buy one of those machines like they have at Build-A-Bear, that I just fill it with fluff, and then I stick the tube in and press play, and it runs, and it fills it up. And it makes it nice and fluffy too. But again, with the whole money thing, I don't have a situation where I can just throw money at these projects blindly. So I had to plan out each new thing that I'm doing. If I'm lucky, I'll get enough of a following and someone's going to be like, you know what? I'm tired of watching you stuff these things. We're going to start a project where you can do that. But I also know that most of what I'm doing is meant to be for fun and to show people how to work with something when you don't have all the equipment that somebody might have. Because when you feel like you're starting at zero and you can never do as good as somebody else does, it gets disheartening. And I've seen that so many different times. I have seen in art classes where someone's like, you know, this guy is so good at painting that I don't want to start over. I don't want to start from nothing. Yes, I had a mini machine that they came out with. You could make 3 bears. So, like, you bought the equipment and it had just enough to make 3 bears? That seems... Or like you could refill the fluff afterwards. Because that sounds exactly like what I need. It was a toy set. That's interesting. I'm going to have to look into that. I'll bet I can find roughly what you're talking about. And if it works the way I would love, it just has to be like a small thing. And if I can refill the fluff, then that would be exactly what I need. And that's another thing too. Part of my thing is that, yes, Build-A-Bear is cool. It's got its aspects that are great. But it's also not really Build-A-Bear. It's Dress-A-Bear. You don't get to add an extra arm to it. You don't get to change the heads. It comes as it comes, and that's it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's part of why I love the idea of making my own. I mean, at about 5:30, I came up with this idea of making a pillow. And now 2 hours later, I am almost done with making this pillowcase. That'd be fantastic. Even if it is a crank, if I had to sit there and crank it and it fills for me, that would be fine. I can even make something that cranks for me. I am the type of guy that is happy to make a thing work. And I can always look into it. That might give me some information on where else to look. Because honestly, I haven't even looked in forever. So I don't know if maybe by now there is something like that. But as you can see, I'm just having to stuff this manually all the way up into it. And then when I go to the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. And it's one of those things that it's honestly, I'd rather do this than cut the patterns out, cut out the material. But that's only barely. This is still a monotonous, man, I need to read more. Monotony is the word I'm looking for. Monotonous. Yeah, I definitely need to read more. It's been a long time since I've really had time to read. I don't even watch TV shows right now. With my son being home, I can't put something on in the background while I am working. Because most of what I would watch would be not what he would watch. And then I don't want him watching TV all day, so there's that side of it. Granted, we still watch a lot of TV during the day, but I'm getting better. We're going to start doing more alphabet stuff, more writing stuff. He's been wanting to help me with some of these projects, so he's come up to me and asked to like sew things or put fluff inside things, which is a lot of fun. And I think that if I can get him interested in making things, I think that'll help him a lot too, because then the kind of like the creative side of stuff. My nose is just itchy enough where I keep having to pause every so often. All right, let me get a little bit more stuffing up there. And because of the way that this is sewn together, what I can actually do is I don't have to worry about hand stitching this closed, which is great because what that means is that I can be reassured that the stitching is going to be stronger. I fully rely on my hand stitching. I fully trust it. But when I can do a machine stitch through all of it, I feel like it's even way more secure. All right, now I'm just basically feeling to make sure that I got the entire tube filled. Don't want there to be any big gaps. Kind of spreading out the material a little bit, adding little pinches here and there. So that's good up to the edge. I think I need to stuff a little bit further in. That gives it a good solid, even. There we go. He's in the bathroom. He's had bathroom issues all day. And he's in there with mommy and he's trying to play still. It's like, doesn't he know that it's gross to play in the bathroom? The one I said, thank you so much. The one out of the box I had, the one in the box. What? I'm so sorry, Catby. I'm very confused. It may be because I'm reading it weird. I've done that before where I'm trying to like read quickly and I kind of read incorrectly. Can get off of Target or Walmart. Oh, cool. All right, so here we go. Spread this just a little bit extra. Come over here to this opening. I'm just going to fill in the gap where the actual opening is at. And again, what I'm doing is I'm just feeling to make sure. You can see, well, actually, you know what? I will right side it out here in a moment. But I'm essentially just feeling to make sure that it feels nice and even, that there's not any breaks in the material, any breaks in the stuffing, just an even spread on it. Almost. You know, that never occurred to me. I didn't even think that there was a text limit. I will learn to be a little bit more patient. So when I read something I don't understand, I will give it an extra couple moments just to see if the rest of it's coming through. Thank you for letting me know. That will definitely be helpful in the future, because I'm sure I'm going to say something silly to somebody at some point in time, and they're going to be like, well, just hold your horses. I was typing. Ah! Oh my goodness. Okay, I got fuzz everywhere. All right, now you can see right there, I've got a nice amount of stuffing all the way across. So let's go ahead and close this up. Again, I was feeling it, and from feel I could tell. Now, right here is going to be a little bit hard. Sewing together the parts that were left open on purpose is going to be a little bit difficult because of the fluff that is now in there. So I'm going to try and pull it all out, line it all up again. And I'm going to try and compact my stuffing just a little bit, just enough to get my pin in place. So I can start sewing right here. And then when I get close enough to the edge, I'm hoping that it won't pull apart when I pull the pin out. Once again on this side, let's compact this in just a little bit extra. Try and get this edge out so I can see. Where did my other, there it is. So I have to get all four edges. Close enough to each other. What is happening? I have a piece of thread. Oh, that's what it is. My excess thread from when I left that opening was pulling on it. All three of these. Okay. Get my fourth one on here. And as you can see, I'm actually pinning it from the brown side this time, because that's the side where I missed a couple stitches just a little bit beyond right here. There we go. It doesn't matter which one I do first, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick one. Oh my goodness. That fuzz is everywhere right now. It's been a little while since it's messed with me that much. Okay, now this is going to be a little bit harder to do. I have to find where I stopped sewing, which is right about here. To line that up. Back stitch just a little bit. Let me get my light here so I can see a little bit better. Okay, now I'm going to try and stitch just a little bit before I remove my pin. Nope, I don't think I can, but let's see if I can hold it in place. It might create a little bit of a divot because it's not as even to the edge as my original stitch was. But that should be okay. All right, that one should be done. With any kind of luck, I got the whole thing in place. Move some stuff around here. And let's see what we have. So See, I somehow managed to overstitch it right there and then miss some stitches as well. So that sucks, but I can see where it happened. I just got to make sure I don't cut my material. I just got to cut the thread. Yep, see, there was so much of it that had overlapped. I'd actually pinned it from all the way back there. All right, let's try and look at this again. Okay, that's all in place. This is all in place. I think that it looks like everything is kind of stitched in place. It's a little bit less clean, but that's okay. It's less clean on the inside. Nope. I got just a little bit of a fold over right there. And I don't think I need to worry about it, but since I'm going to have to stitch again anyways because of the seams that I broke, I'm just going to fix it anyways. And I'm going to hope that there's enough stitches in there to keep me from having to repin it, because the pin being in the way did cause a little bit of a problem. So now, with any amount of luck, that will fix my problem. I can stitch straight across and not have the same problems. Find a good starting point here. Always back stitch. Pull both of my materials out so they don't fold under the same way as I did last time. I'm not even sure how far I have to go. I just kind of have to wing it because I can't tell where any of that stuff was. All right, let's get some of this excess threads out of the way. All right, so that looks like it's a nice stitch there. Not super pretty, but also shouldn't cause a problem. And the same here. Looks like I got to stitch all the way across. Again, it's not super pretty, but look what it does. You can't even tell. And where you can tell, you have to really look for it. Oops. Is this an opening? It is. So I didn't quite get all of it, and I will just hand stitch that afterwards. Well, maybe I can find it just enough right here. And if I can, yeah, I think I can. I should be able to stitch just a little bit more in there and catch that. I can't say that what I'm doing now is better than hand stitching, but I can say it's what I would prefer to do. Sometimes just doing what you prefer to do is all it takes to make it better. Now, let's see if I fixed it. Here is my end. Not quite. It looks like it's just enough in there where I can't quite sew deep enough without really getting into it. So hand stitching this will be just fine. I'm just going to do a quick hand stitch on that when I get done. I've got one more to sew. I did this side, so now I got to do over here. Pay more attention, make sure that I don't have any overlaps. See, like right here, it is an overlap. But that's also not pinned in place, it's just the way it looks. So now I can start a little bit deeper. Make sure, oops. I cut my thread a little bit too short, so it just came right out of my needle. There we go. Put the air nozzle, wait. You can make a down-filling machine if you have an air compressor with an air nozzle. Just take the plastic piece air nozzle a little bit into stock and then fill fluff in the back. Well, that's not too bad of an idea. I don't know if I have something like that. I know that I might be able to find like a shop vac. And with a shop vac, I might be able to do a test version of that. Exact same thing. And then once I know what I'm doing, I can do some more. I can make some purchases that way. Because that could work really well. Smirk. That's a very good idea. Now, I don't know how the fluff would move through it. I think that's going to be the next worry. But, again, just a few tests with something simpler before I invest in any other material, too. With any luck, I made just enough changes where I don't have the same problems. Go a little bit further. Back stitch. All right, that turned out way better. There's still an overlap, but again, you can't really tell from the inside. Hopefully, I got all of it in. Looks like I did here, so that's good. All right, let's cut off this excess just because I don't need it in the way. Make sure I don't cut my fingers off while I'm doing that because that would suck. All right, just the basic show. That's what we're going for. Whoops. My bathroom is at the end of the hallway, which is almost completely visible if I put the wrong angle here. All right, so that's what we're going for. Here's the shape that we've got. I'm hoping I made it big enough to fit the pillow. It's starting to look like not so much, but I knew it was going to be tight. We're going to be making it a little bit form-fitting. Not quite wide enough. But you know what? We headed in the right direction. If I had made it just a little bit taller. This is clearly, well, for me, it's clearly not how tall I wanted it. I said I wanted it to be about, 10 inches, 9 inches? And somehow I made it about 7.5, 8 inches. And I made it as wide as I wanted. That's funny. It's almost exactly flipped because I wanted it to be 7 by 10 or 7 by 9. Let's see if I can do here. So this one doesn't exactly work, but it gives me enough information to make it work. And then even with that being said, the idea of being kind of cutesy, I just add the claws to it, and then I add the eye, and I add the eyes, and it's pretty much what we're aiming for anyways. Yeah, ditto. It does look a little bit jelly, doesn't it? A little bit dumpy and wide. And you can see, even with me attempting to overlap, it's because it's not tall enough. If I had made it taller, then it would have overlapped like this and been okay. But because it is not quite tall enough, that's so funny that it wound up being almost the exact opposite somehow. Here to here being completely flipped. So what it should have been like was closer to this. And even with that being said, you can see pretty much everything I was aiming for. It's just a slightly off shape. And then what will happen is, I think that because this is not a solid piece, that what winds up happening is it pulls at both ends. And that's why there's this little change in shape right here. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do some eyes. Let's see, how big do I want the eyes? This one I can have a little bit more control over. So if I make the eyes right about, say I want them down. If I make the eyes right about here and I do I can do crescent eyes instead of the rounded eyes. And if I do them both in the same direction, it'll kind of look like he's looking up and to the side. So then I need to make this one about the same size. Also looking that direction. I want the... Yeah. Let's see what that'll look like when I put those on. We live in Oklahoma, which I've mentioned before. And we are now right in the beginning of our super sick, gross, hot season. So today, it felt like 100-something. We're expecting about at least a week of that kind of weather, followed by probably a couple months of it. Our air conditioner died last year, just about July. And it's such an old air conditioner that they tried to convince us to replace it. Central Air. Yeah, our central air conditioner. For like $11,000. So in the overall, we were like, no, that just can't happen. So I had this idea not too long ago that maybe I can actually just replace the part. There we go. I think that looks good because it'll make it look like it's looking over to the side. And then when I add the yellow for the arms, they'll stick out a little bit. But I think that that'll turn out pretty cute. I think I have enough time that I can put one of the eyes on so we can see so I can show you how I do that. But today is the first day I have really felt the heat, even though I'm sitting in a fan, but I'm also sitting under the lights. Yeah, so it's a little bit toasty inside this house. All right, so what I will do is I'm going to use black because it'll match and hide in the background. You could use red or black because that's what the two colors that you have here. Just a real simple threading. Since I'm not doing any kind of embroidery or anything like that, I don't have to worry about doubling it up. Hat? Yes, it is your hat. Cut the excess off. Again, I don't need to worry about the two eyes being the exact same. But if I make this a little bit easier on myself by pinning this one in place, I'll know where I want all the sides to go. And once I get started, it'll be a little bit easier. I'd rather be hot than have a hailstorm and 60 miles per hour wind. Honestly, we're going to get both. We're going to get hot, sticky, windy. We're going to have storms. It's going to be a long summer. Oops, looks like, nope, I didn't. Okay. Come on. There we go. All I'm doing is starting it by making sure it stays in place. All right, now the way that I do this is I am essentially going to be doing that same ladder stitch I would do to close a normal plush. Just back and forth. But I'm going to be slightly inside the top piece here. So here's the edge. I'm going to shallow stitch right there. And what will happen is it's going to fold. You can see what the stitches are doing. It's going to fold ever so slightly along the lip of it. and it'll make a nice, simple little attachment. I like to do this because I can add pretty much any shape I want. And I'll show you, man, in my room on that little table just inside the door is the watermelon mouse. Could you bring that to me? I can just basically follow from one to the other, giving it the exact shape that I already planned. Pull it tight between stitches so that it folds under. And by doing this, I can actually give it pretty much any kind of shape that I want after the fact. Now, there are other methods of doing this. I could use applique, which is what I was talking about before, where I would put a stitch across this whole piece where it goes on, off, and it embroiders all around the edge. I can also cut out the shape and then sew it on the inside so it's one seamless piece.
Two things it's for him.
Still? Even though you showed it to him? That's funny.
I tried to eat it.
That's funny. So I do that with this. So I've got nice fuzzy background, but it's almost like he's got a tattoo or a little My Little Pony emblem. And I just attach a secondary color to it. Let's see if I can get it to show. So this person gave it a watermelon heart. But I can do that with a lot of different things. And in this example, I'm just kind of using it for the eye. I just have to make sure the eye is where I want it to be as I stitch each piece on. And if I pull it tight, it will lay it flat. I just have to make sure I keep it even, because if I go uneven, it'll pull awkward directions. And that in itself will just show up a little bit more than you want it to. So you want to do your very best to get one stitch started where the other one came out. And that's kind of a practice thing. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect at it, but that's going to be what you're going to have to do if you're trying to do something like this. You're just going to have to practice at it. It's definitely easier to go from the top to the bottom and keep it nice and even. But it's kind of hard to see where it's supposed to go onto the top piece in comparison. Now, another thing is when you're doing this, between stitches, you can always just tuck it in. Make that line a little bit more clean. Hide some of your edge so it doesn't have like a sporadic edge to it. Get all the fuzz from one piece tucked in. And it cleans it up just a little bit as you go. Now, you do still lose just a little bit of your top piece because it's folding under. So you have to kind of keep that in mind whenever you're making something like this. Depending on how small it is that you're working with, it'll make a difference. But something bigger like what this eye is, I'm not going to lose enough where I even think that it would show. And I didn't have to plan for it too much when I cut the piece off. Just trying to keep it as even as I can. Folding on underneath one piece to the next. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to work out. Since this is just that one-off, there's a chance that I'll have to go get a brand new pillow or just make a new pillow or something like that for it because of the size difference between the pillow that I was planning to use and the cover. But I think this kind of shows that it would be a fun project. You can make a lot of different types of pillowcases. I used to have this idea of making like tombstone pillowcases that are shaped like a normal pillow. So maybe slightly rounded on the corner. But then your bed would look like a graveyard. I just think that that'd be kind of cute and fun. I just haven't done it yet. Maybe one day that'll be my Weird Wednesday project. Which reminds me, for anybody that's still here, I intend to finish my Mothman project. And I cannot remember if we discuss a plan for next time. Oh, I do remember. We're going to make a mouse. We're going to do a spooky mouse with a detachable head. So Weird Wednesday this Wednesday. is going to be making basically a Sleepy Hollow mouse. I'm going to try and make a few things in advance to make it a little bit easier and quicker. That's my usual plan for whenever I go live. I like to have a lot of it started so that basically we just kind of get directly into the work. But yeah, a Sleepy Hollow mouse is the plan for tomorrow or Wednesday. If you are interested in seeing how that works out, here is an example of my mice. Here's the head of one. Here is a customized version with the watermelon ears and tattooed button. But I'm going to make one of these that is a Sleepy Hollow version.
What's name?
What's the name of this Pokemon? Kawbootoe.
And your phone for tiny one.
This is the tiny one.
No bigger one.
Well, the bigger one is not here. I haven't made that yet.
But small. It's this small one.
Yeah, this is the small one.
Yeah.
You can only get it from a fossil.
Yeah, where's tiny one?
This is as tiny as it gets, buddy.
Oh, I saw it in Pokemon cards.
No, not this one. Maybe a different one.
No, not. You're all silly.
You're silly.
I'm not.
You don't know from Pokemon.
I know.
You weren't raised in the Dark Ages.
I know. Teeny tiny.
I was there when the tablet was writ.
I know Pokemon. I know teeny tiny Pokemon.
You know teeny tiny Pokemon?
I know teeny tiny Pokemon. I know it.
You know it? Okay, well, I'll try and find what you're talking about. We should be able to find that pretty easily.
And your cards.
I can't wait for the headless mouse.
And your phone.
I think it'll be a lot of fun.
And your phone. And
Uh,
your phone.
Well, yes, but my phone is being used for filming right now. One of the things about the headless mouse is I'm not sure how strong my magnets are. I'm hopeful that they will be strong enough to hold the head once I get the fluffing into it.
What is that? Where's his age?
Where's his leg? Oh, I haven't made them yet. I will make them later, though. Right now, I just really want to put this eye on so we can see what it would look like. And I am almost done with that. Super close. You can see it actually goes on nice and smoothly. There's not too many breaks where the stitches are, and that's mostly just the fact that the fuzz needs to be pulled out. I'm pretty sure I've got more there. I'm pretty sure I got more of a point here than that.
I will stop.
I keep having to tuck in the corners as I go, or the edge. Chip, stop barking. Chip! I can't really blame Chip. Chip! He's barking at Vance, who's playing with him, but it doesn't make it any less annoying. Almost there. I gotta make sure I get these tucked in. If I don't tuck in, you can see the thread, and that becomes its own little problem. Just a couple more stitches going back up since I didn't bring it right to the edge when I started. And I probably should have. It's hard to tell what will be the better option when it comes to this kind of stitching. Sometimes it is better to start at the corner, and sometimes it doesn't seem like that's the case. So now I'm trying to tuck that corner in since it's such a small corner. That's why I should have started it there. When it is a wider corner or a rounded edge, it almost doesn't matter where you start it.
Small one.
Almost there. Oops, I got to get a little bit deeper into the fabric. Sorry, I have to concentrate a little bit more on what I'm doing here. Just because, like I said, I'm trying to keep it even. I'm trying to get to the corners of it. One more stitch into the red, and then I will close it off into the body.
No, I watched Papa and Nick Pokemon is Ricky.
I'm almost done, buddy.
I'm watching you.
You're watching me?
No way. No way.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to finish the legs today. What I'll do is I'll finish that later.
No.
Oh, no. I just realized a problem. I will fix that later, though. So, I completely forgot this is not a plush.
I feel it.
And what that means is I just sewed that into the material and into my pillow. So I won't be able to take the pillow out.
This mine.
But we can see what it'll look like.
I'm feeling it. Uh-oh.
No, yeah, we can't take that out. So once I get the arms on there,
No.
which I'll put right around here, so it'll be, where's my other eye? There's my other eye. I think it'll look cute with it looking this way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
I think that'll be kind of fun.
Look, it's like itself. Like,
All right, let go, please.
like self.
Like yourself.
No, like this, like turtle.
Yeah, it kind of does look like a turtle shell, huh? That's because it's supposed to be like a, not an ammonite, a horseshoe fish.
Papa, look.
Yeah. And Vance, I wish you'd stop doing that.
It's coming down.
I know it's coming off because I didn't sew it on yet. But this way we can see what it looks like. See? That's what I intended.
Where's legs? Where's legs?
I told you I haven't made the legs yet. What I'm probably going to have to do is make the legs over the weekend.
Please.
Vance.
I picked together.
There we go.
I help you.
There's nothing to help me with right now. Stop.
Like this.
So that's what we came up with. It's definitely wider. I think it kind of still cute with it being wide like that. It's just that the problem that the pillow didn't quite fit it. But I think this is an overall pretty decent success.
Where's this?
Lets me know quite a bit. I'm going to undo this so that I can sew it on without.
Papa, your gossip and your
Yeah.
gossip.
I will do that one later. He is a big helper. And by helper, sometimes you mean nuisance.
Where's
So
Rabbit
basically,
Where's
I think we're going to be.
Shack?
Vance,
Where's Rabbit Shack?
what are you talking about? Rapidash?
Yeah, where is it?
I don't know. You've got it with your Pokemon. I've already made it. All right, guys. It looks like that's where I'm going to end it for the night. I will finish this up and we'll see what we think about this as a pillowcase. I hope you guys have a great night. I hope to see some of you on Wednesday when I make a headless mouse. Thank you again. I really appreciate you coming out. You have a good night.
Papa. It's suck. This is suck.